Oh my goodness, there is so much going on with everything with Donald Trump coming into office now. There's so many executive orders being signed, so many executive orders that people are wanting to sign, not just in Bitcoin, but in the rest of the world. So it's kind of nice, being me, not having to worry about a politician, but instead holding my hard-earned energy and capital in apolitical digital money for enemies, Bitcoin. I don't have to trust Donald Trump for my Bitcoins to retain their value into the future, and you don't have to either. But right now, a lot of people are very confused, excited, afraid, upset, annoyed, disappointed, whatever it is, about what's happened with Donald Trump. So, a lot of executive orders have been signed. Anything with Bitcoin yet? No, not really. Anything that has been that consequential. Obviously, there is the freeing of Ross Ulbricht. That is something that is very popular among Bitcoiners. Obviously, there is the strategic Bitcoin reserve that is very popular, that Bitcoiners are really excited about. And of course, there are the various kinds of repeals and revocations of different kinds of regulations and restrictions for banks, right? Obviously, lots of things that Bitcoiners want to see have done, but oh my goodness, why hasn't it happened yet? He's already been in office for so long. Right now, here's the first problem. The first problem is that what actually does day one constitute, right? When you have a politician that says, day one, we're going to do this, what does it actually mean? I actually don't know. Okay, if he comes into office at noon on January 20th, is the first day between noon and midnight? Well, it's the first calendar day, right? Okay, is the first day the first 24 hours? Okay, I could see that happening. Is the first day the first full day after coming into office? Well, then maybe it's all of today, January 21st as well, right? So, I don't really know what's counted as that. You can make up your own mind. Probably everybody has their own opinion. All I have to say is that a lot of people are saying, oh my gosh, thing X or thing Y or thing Z didn't happen on day one. Oh, well, that's the first thing, is like you could probably define day one in multiple other ways. Here's the second thing. The heart of the matter is often more important than the specifics of the matter. However, if in this case he promised something on day one, and if by midnight tonight, January 21st of his administration, then obviously that was not true. That was either a lie or he revoked on that promise. So obviously there is critique there that is legitimate if by midnight tonight, even by the most generous extension of the promise, that's not fulfilled, then that's a real problem. He was saying many times that Ross Ulbricht would be freed on day one, right? Maybe some people could say that was already, overlooked, that was already compromised. Other people maybe could argue it's a different day, right? My point is that depending on what your definition of day is, and depending on which bills or which executive orders you prioritize, either you're probably feeling some juxtaposition of anger or disappointment or excitement or whatever it is, right? My big message is you probably should not trust Donald Trump, okay? That's the thing I really want to say. Sure, maybe you prefer Donald Trump over Kamala Harris, right? Probably not a bad idea. But my point is, even if you like Trump, even if you're a Trump voter, even if you support Trump, you should not trust him. He has lied numerous times. He has failed on promises numerous times. He has thousands of people with billions of dollars trying to sway him in 100 different directions right now. You should not trust him. But the emphasis of this video is to focus on the signal over the noise. The signal is that he made promises. He shifted the Overton window greatly. You should not have been trusting those promises. I made it very clear over the course of months. I was not trusting those promises. However, it was still a big deal nonetheless, because the Overton window has been shifted. And I'm optimistic that more things will be passed in due course in a reasonable amount of time, right? We will see. Even if things have fallen short, maybe on the specifics, hopefully things in heart still remain true. And even if they fail in heart and he was completely fabricating all the lies, the Overton window nonetheless has still shifted. If you are having all of your faith in a politician, whether it was Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or whomever else, if you're having faith in a politician, you've kind of missed the point. Bitcoin is money for enemies. Bitcoin is money for those that want to not have to trust anybody, including and especially the politicians in charge. So I feel very grateful right now that I've not made any very firm predictions about what I think is going to happen. A lot of people out there made very firm, bold predictions of this is going to happen by X date because I know it, right? Because I've inside information, blah, 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 because I'm so smart, because I heard it from, For me, I can just live easy because I don't have to worry about, I made a specific prediction of a specific price by a specific date or a specific bill passed by a specific date. I said maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Hopefully it happens. Hopefully he keeps his word. We'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of wiggle room in there. But the really big emphasis I want to have is not just a signal on the noise for the next couple of days, but for the next few years, right? Donald Trump is going to be in office basically for the next 4 years, right? Give or take, a very short period of time, right? 4 years. He's done a lot of noisy things in the last week. He's been more obsessed and focused on the release of Trump coin than the freeing of Ross Ulbricht. He's been more focused on other things inherently than a strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? Obviously, Trump is distracted with many other things right now. I think many people would, agree with some of those things are important. Others of those things aren't as important. So there's a lot of noise there. But my point is, even though Donald Trump is not a Bitcoiner today, even though Donald Trump does not understand this national strategic importance of Bitcoin today, it's entirely possible he doesn't quiet. It's entirely possible that as America stacks Bitcoin, they don't make it public. It's entirely possible that he may not understand it for 3 years. But still, the emphasis remains the same. You cannot control Donald Trump. You should not trust Donald Trump. You should not trust any politician. Again, if you are trusting them, you've lost the plot. The point is, you can only control what you do for yourself and your family, for your life, for your charity, for your company, for your church, right? That's all you can control. And what you can objectively say, based upon Donald Trump being overt with pro-Bitcoin / Bitcoin agnostic, and now being in office, what you can objectively say is that Trump shifted the Overton window greatly. You can say that the odds are significantly higher Trump's going to do more pro-Bitcoin things than if Kamala Harris had been elected. You can say objectively that Trump has probably at least another 4 years in office, assuming that he makes it all 4 years, right? Assuming he's in office the next 4 years, he has 4 years to become more pro-Bitcoin, to reduce his exposure and incentive in the meme coins, right? That is the signal I'm trying to get across here, is that you should not put your faith in other people, right? You should not put your faith in politicians, and that there's a lot of noise right now with a lot of news headlines, and you're probably spending a lot of time spinning the news, spinning the headlines, seeing what's happening, oh my gosh, what's going on? But the big emphasis here is you can't change any of that. It doesn't matter if you look at the headlines. It doesn't matter if you don't look at the headlines. The headlines are still going to be the headlines for people that don't have anything more important to do to read. And so my encouragement for you is to put things in your life that are more important. For me, personally, do I have an interest in seeing what Donald Trump is doing? Yeah, sure. But I have more important things to do with my life, live my life, spend time with friends. I'm going to go to dinner with a few Bitcoin friends tonight. We're going to talk shop, maybe a little bit about this kind of politics stuff, but about more important things in life. And my encouragement for you, focusing on the signal instead of the noise, my encouragement for you is that no matter what your emotions are today in reaction to the first 24, 36, 48 hours of the Trump administration, my encouragement is focus on you and build your life so that you have more important things to focus on than keeping up to date literally by the minute of what's going on by people that you can't control. What you can control is your Bitcoin. What you can control is your Bitcoin security. What you can control is how many Bitcoin you stack, how much of a Bitcoin you stack. That is my big encouragement. So let's talk about $500,000 worth of Bitcoin. Okay, $500,000 worth of Bitcoin. Many of you watching this have $20 million worth of Bitcoin. I'm going to have dinner tonight with somebody who's got $100 million worth of Bitcoin, right? A lot of you have tens of millions, a couple of you $100 million or more. Many of you are Bitcoin millionaires. That's great. Many of you aren't. Many of you are trying to get to your first $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. Some of you are trying to get to your first $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. A lot of you are in the 5 to 6 figures, right? So let's take somebody, pick from relatively in the middle. Let's say you're watching this and you've managed to stack a very sizable achievement of 2.5 Bitcoin. At today's price, given the volatility, again, all the noise around the Trump election going down to the low 90s and up back close to 108, 109,000 and back down again, right? It's been a very volatile, 24, 48 hours here. Cutting through that noise, the signal is Bitcoin's about $100,000. You've got about 2.5 Bitcoin. That's roughly $250,000 of Bitcoin. Good for you. Congrats. My encouragement is stop wasting time focusing on what Trump has done or what he has not done, what he has promised, what he has not promised. Okay, sure, all that matters. Sure, it matters if he's lying or not. Sure, it matters if he fulfills his promises or not. But you have an obligation to the people in your life, to your kids, and to the people, to the people that you are responsible for, in the present and in the future. Here's $250. Okay, $250 is a non-trivial amount of money, right? If I threw this off the ledge here, just letting it blow in the breeze, that would be pretty dumb. Right? That would be pretty dumb. So I'm not going to do that. But here's my point. My point is If you have $250,000 of Bitcoin right now, that's probably going to be $500,000 worth of Bitcoin at some point later in the next year or so. And every day, every single day you squander by reading the headlines, by trying to figure out things outside of your control, what's actually going to happen. You are squandering the opportunity to buy more Bitcoin. You could have gone out today and bought maybe another $50 or another $100 worth of Bitcoin. You could have done that today, but you didn't, because you're too distracted by focusing on what somebody outside of your control was possibly going to do with some piece of paper and some pen. This is your chance to stack Bitcoin. You have an awesome, incredible, once-in-a-lifetime information asymmetry that nobody else in the world seems to have. And you're squandering your opportunity cost by just throwing it over the ledge because you would rather spend your precious time scrolling the news or scrolling the headlines or watching the videos or reacting to the commentary or watching other people react to the commentary or reactions of the commentary. And if you have 2.5 Bitcoin and you squandered one more day of this bull market, guess what? You're going to have $500,000 worth of Bitcoin, at least, probably, at some point in the next year or so. And every single day that the Bitcoin is pumping and the bull market top is critical, okay? If you have not maximized your self-custody solution, if you not have maximized your tax strategy, if you have not maximized everything when it comes to buying or selling your Bitcoin in the future, or more importantly, not just for you, but when it comes to the people in your life, let's not say $250, let's say a larger amount, right? You have to understand, the people in your life think you're crazy. The people at work think you're crazy. The people at church think you're crazy. Your family thinks you're crazy, right? You have a very small, precious window in the second half of 2025 that is the only time in the next 4 years that your family is going to think you're a genius. When Bitcoin is going up and up and up and up, that's what they're going to say. Oh my gosh, you were right. I should have been buying. I should have been allocating. What do I do? Where do I buy? How do I self-custody? Teach me. There's going to be only a couple months in the next 4 years that your family is willing to listen to you, and you must be ready to help them. You must have your questions answered now. You are in the last windows of the last few weeks here, last few months here, to prepare yourself with all tax questions, legal preparations, and self-custody preparations, so that when your family members come, you advise them, you point them, you direct them in the right direction to where they're not going to make a mistake. And so now we're not just talking about your own opportunity cost of purchasing power, we're talking about your family. Every single day, you don't prepare for your loved ones to help point them in the right direction where they're going to actually buy more Bitcoin and keep more Bitcoin without losing that Bitcoin or selling that Bitcoin or trading that Bitcoin, you are squandering your time where you can prepare yourself not just to be ready for your own Bitcoin to increase in purchasing power by a factor of 2, but to help your loved ones begin their Bitcoin journey at the only time in the next 4 years they're going to be willing to actually take your advice. And it's so much harder to correct bad advice you've given. It's so much easier just to give good advice the first time. This is one of the reasons why I emphasize multi-sig, multi-sig so much. Is because for you, you may feel like you don't need multi-sig right now. But for your loved ones, they're going to need multi-sig. They're just going to need it. You're not going to want to put them on Coinbase. You're not going to want to put them on any kind of exchange because it's like throwing money away off the side of a building, right? And also, you don't want to give them a seed phrase. You don't want your mom to come to you in 6 months and say, honey, you're right. I should have listened to you. I want to put 10% of my net worth, of my IRA, of my retirement into Bitcoin. I want to put 10% into Bitcoin right now, but I'm terrified to hold a single seed phrase, and I know I shouldn't have an ETF. Teach me what to do, oh wise son or brother or friend or whomever it is, right? You're going to have one chance to tell them what to do. And I think in that scenario, you're going to want to tell them, do a multi-sig, a multi-jurisdictional multi-sig, where you're not going to lose the Bitcoin, but at the same time, you still hold self-custody. And if you were not prepared to give proper advice, whether it's that, or where to buy Bitcoin, or who to talk to, or any of that kind of stuff, you are squandering the opportunity cost of your parents, of your loved ones. You are throwing money off the ledge because you are squandering every single day left. Let's say you have $250,000 of Bitcoin, 2.5 Bitcoin. You have an incredible stack. You feel like you're too late, but you're holding it, you're trying to get self-custody, you're wanting to take self-custody, but you're so distracted with what freaking Donald Trump is going to do. You are squandering this opportunity where that $250,000 is going to go to $500,000. And a 1% move on $500,000 is, guess what? $500. Actually, that's not true. That's off by a factor of 10. That's a 0.1% move. A 1% move on $500,000 is $5,000. This is a 1/10 of a 1% move. And you have maybe 200 days, just 200 days to take advantage of this opportunity. You're going to make $250,000 in the next 200, 300 days or so. You can't afford to squander any more time watching YouTube videos you don't actually need to be watching. You can't afford to be scrolling headlines or trying to figure out what somebody outside of your control in some faraway office from you that maybe doesn't care about you and that you've never met. You don't have time to be wasting. Think about that. You have to think about the opportunity cost for yourself, for stacking more Bitcoin, protecting the Bitcoin you already have, and preparing for your loved ones and your family members to actually take you seriously for the only time in the next 4 years. This is your opportunity. And every time you scroll, every time you waste time, you're like chucking one of these $100 bills off of this ledge here. It's completely wasteful. You are squandering your opportunity cost. This is why for years now, I've been focusing on the self-custody arguments, been focusing on the multi-sig arguments, been focusing on these things. This is your last chance for this cycle. One of two things is going to happen. Either Bitcoin's going to go up and then we're going to have a bear market for some period of time, or we're going to have a super cycle. And you better hope and pray that we have option number one, because if this is option number two, you're not going to be looking at the opportunity cost of $500. You're going to be looking at the opportunity cost of $5,000 or $50,000 that you're chucking off the ledge here. Because if this is actually a super cycle, and I know a lot of you believe that, if this actually is a super cycle, you have less than 6 months left to prepare before it happens. To prepare yourself, your loved ones, your family members, and your own lifestyle to prepare for it. Your self-custody situation is not yet ready for $2 million Bitcoin if we have a super cycle. You better hope and pray we have a traditional 4-year cycle. I think that's more likely than a super cycle, but for goodness sakes, I don't want to be wrong. I know I'm ready, I know my clients are ready, but I know 90% of the people in Bitcoin right now are not prepared for that. If you have Bitcoin on Coinbase, you are not prepared. Every day that you're delaying taking self-custody off Coinbase, you are chucking $100 bills off of the side of this building, letting it blow into the wind, never to see it again because you're so distracted with wasting your time with insignificant things that you don't actually have a tangible way of thinking about the opportunity cost you have. Think for yourself what you think your net worth is going to be in a year or so. Just don't tell me, don't put it in the comments, for goodness sakes. I just had somebody do that. It happens all the time. It's crazy that people still do that. But think to yourself, what's your Bitcoin stack? What do you think the Bitcoin price is going to be? In your opinion. Don't take my word for it. I don't know what's going to happen. In your best opinion, take that number. Think of that number. Take that number, divide it by 200. That's the average amount of money you're going to make in the next 200 days. And every day, you continue to tolerate the risks